Well, it looks like we got some great news today. The Crown has staged their breach of trust charges against suspended Vice-Admiral Mark Norman. So this is good news. I think we all knew that this guy was innocent. This whole thing was politically motivated to begin with. All they were really trying to do was try to get him to admit to the charges because he couldn't pay for the lawyer fees, right? The government refused to cover his lawyer fees through the federal government fund that usually covers them because they said that he was already found guilty of releasing information, which he wasn't. So now he owes something like $500,000 because of the government, and there's like, oh, oopsie daisy, sorry, we're gonna drop the charges. There was new information brought to us in March, and we think that we don't need to bring this to trial anymore, which is completely bullshit. They didn't want to do it during an election season, and they didn't want to be exposed because there is a lot of a lot of Trudeau's head people that were in the top administration of Trudeau had connections with the Irving family, who also likes to build a lot of ships and who probably wanted that contract as opposed to the other company. So they were trying to delay it and probably get them in there instead. But that would have all been exposed if it would have been brought to trial. Trudeau would have looked really bad because there's probably evidence of him trying to influence this, and there was apparently a couple emails or instances where he referenced Mark Norman going to trial before it even happened. So this was definitely on their mind. This it's just like the SNC Lavalin thing. They're influencing the prosecution. They're influencing the RCMP to go investigate this and go investigate these wild goose chases where Trudeau has had multiple ethics violations. The RCMP doesn't investigate him for anything that he does or all the potential legal things that they're doing because they're just all working together. They're politically motivated, and they don't have everybody's. They're not independent of one another, which they should be. And that's what the Crown was saying today. Like, this is from CTV. They're like, inside the Ottawa courthouse on Wednesday, prosecutors outlined their reasoning behind the drop charges in the high-profile case. Prompted by an allegation that the leaked cabinet documents, the Crown says the decision was made solely by the Director of Public Prosecutions and denied that there was any interference in the decision. So, we were acting independently, guys. Trust us. It has nothing to do with saving Trudeau and his ass in the upcoming election. Federal prosecutors Barbara Mercier said in court that it had a duty to end the prosecution if there was no reasonable prospect of conviction, and that while some of his actions were, in the prosecutor's mind, secretive and inappropriate, it was not criminal. So if the trial... this is from CTV. The trial, if went ahead, had the potential to expose damaging revelations about how big military contracts are awarded. So yeah, it's all completely bullshit. Speaking in court Wednesday morning, Haneen provided a statement about prosecutorial discretion and independence that appeared to be a pivot on her prior messaging about political motivations. She said that Crown lawyers acted in highest tradition of the bar and that she is grateful that the public prosecution service acted independently. Just, guys, trust us. There was no interference. Trust us. They acted independently here. We gotta reiterate this 100 million times. The Crown said that Norman's defense team presented information in March that provided new context for Norman's conduct. It did call into question whether or not we could prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Mercier told reporters on her way out of the courtroom. She said that the Crown could not provide that Norman's conduct amounted to a departure from the standards expected of a person in his position. And then later, further down the article, she's like, CTV News has also reported that Norman's legal fees, which are not being covered by the government, have grown to more than $500,000, and that this has presented him with a serious financial burden that sources tell CTV News has been very difficult for him to deal with. So that this is what they're just trying to make him go broke financially. They didn't cover his cost. They're like, okay, hopefully he'll just give in eventually before the election. But he didn't. He kept going, and it would have exposed them. So like, okay, let's just, obviously Trudeau, there's probably some leaked info somewhere that we could discover that shows how Trudeau probably did influence the prosecution, right? And in 2018, they made it legal to do it, right? They made it so, Lementi right now could go to the prosecution and say, stay the charges, right? But he would have to release a message in the Canada Gazette saying that he influenced the prosecution. So, judging by how quickly they changed their position and how hard they were going after this guy just a couple months ago or a month ago, makes me think that maybe there was something, that there's some illegal shit going on, right? Because if he did influence the prosecution, Lementi, and if Trudeau told Lementi to do it, then that is illegal. Then he's not allowed to do that. Because like I said, he should have released something in the Canada Gazette. But is the RCMP going to do some investigation about that? No, they're not going to do that. They're only going to investigate, I don't know, Faith Goldie and whether or not she's using election funds or money she's getting from YouTubers to fund her election and pay for all of the other legal fees that she has, right? It's ridiculous. But there's another article too from the National Post that goes more into detail about a lot of why this was stopped. But I'll read some of it here. So the RCMP alleged Norman tipped off Davie Shipbuilding in the fall of 2015 that the Liberal government was considering delaying a project in which the Quebec firm would convert a commercial ship into a much-needed supply vessel for the Royal Canadian Navy. Details about the government's decision were also leaked to journalists, and the resulting embarrassment, along with $89 million in financial penalties that would have been imposed on the government, forced the Liberals to back down on their plans. So, it was leaked. They got made to look like fools. The Irvin family is probably very angry, and they're like, okay, we need to make whoever leaked this pay. We got to find somebody and make them pay. But the government brought in the RCMP to hunt down the source of the alleged leak, and the police force ultimately focused on Norman as their suspect. In pretrial hearings over the last year, defense lawyer Mary Hanine, I'm not sure, has been methodically building an argument that the Liberal government had politically interfered in the case, and that its officials had ignored subpoenas to disclose documents relevant to the matter. So yeah, they were not releasing a lot of relevant information that would have revealed his innocence long ago. So they just kept the trial going, kept spending money, paying money for lawyers, where the government, they just have unlimited funds and they could just keep at it for as long as they want. Norman's trial had been set for August and could have seen key Liberal cabinet ministers and officials being cross-examined in court in the run-up to the anticipated October election. So, they didn't want that. Norman's lawyer took aim at a key cabinet minister, focusing on allegations about Scott Bryson's link to the powerful Irving family, which owns Irving Shipbuilding, and his role in a Liberal government's plan to delay the Davie contract. So, I looked into this guy, and he was at one point a conservative, and he was promoting, when the party was split, he was promoting the party reunite again. And as soon as it did, he left and went to the Liberals and became like a Liberal minister or something under the Liberal government or something like that, right? So this guy, he's an opportunist. And right after he left the cabinet in 2019, obviously because of probably this, they didn't want him questioned or something, he went, and now he's working for the BMO Bank, right? So, he was president of the Treasury Board of Canada in Justin Trudeau's ministry until 2019, right? January 2019, and then on February 6, 2019, he announced he was resigning his seat in the Canadian House of Commons, effective February 10th. Bryson is now the Bank of Montreal's vice chair of investments and corporate banking. So, look at this. this is what politicians do. It's insider trading. They work for the government. He's working for the Treasury Board of Canada. Now he's working for a bank immediately after, and he's a vice chair of investments of corporate banking. This should be illegal. People should not be able to go work for these corporations right after they leave office, because they're like, hey, I'm a public service. I'm serving you people. Look, I'm only getting paid a measly $100,000 a year, and I'm worth all this money, blah, blah, blah. But then right afterwards, they go and they work for a bank, and then they make millions of dollars every year because all the information that they have from working inside of the government. They know a lot of stuff. They know what's going to happen in the future, like certain government policies that have not been released yet that is going to affect the market. So then they know all this information. They can give a heads up to their buddies like the Irving Foundation, etc., to say, hey, start selling your stocks right now on this because we're going to start to put subsidies or tariffs on this. So this is how they make a lot of fucking money after leaving politics. But among other allegations from the pretrial hearings, or Norman's lawyer took aim at the key cabinet, etc., etc. Among other allegations from the pretrial hearing, one witness Norman's lawyer revealed that his superior, a Canadian Forces brigadier general, told him Norman's name was deliberately not used in internal files, meaning any search conducted for records about Norman would come up empty. Norman's lawyers cited the evidence as an example of how the process was being rigged against their clients, and it's what leftists do all the time too. They do this in the media, when the way that they frame articles, when it's white man kills black person, you can easily find this. But if it's like black person kills white person, you're not going to find that headline. It's going to be more difficult, right? Maybe this is a bad example, but this is something that they do often. It's how to keep people out of search results, and it's dubious, and they could be like, oh, no, it wasn't on purpose, we just failed to mention his name, we didn't think it was relevant information. You can't prove that that's not what we thought. Haneen has been working on bringing forward an abuse of process motion that would have been argued sometime in late May. That motion would have focused on allegations of political interference and obstruction of subpoenas for documents in an effort to see the case dismissed before it got to trial. So that was their whole intention. Like, hopefully it gets dismissed, and then we can kind of like make him seem like the guilty party, and we were justified with all of our oversight and what we did, and refusing to pay for his legal fees because he was clearly guilty, right? They should reimburse him for all this shit. It's bullshit. Norman's lawyers were also in the midst of fighting against redactions on a series of government documents they believe could be key for his defense, including memos drafted for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on the case in a flurry of emails sent by Trudeau's senior advisors last fall. So Gerald Butts and all these other people who also left because they're like, oh, I'm just going to step down because, I don't want to distract from the great work that Trudeau is doing with the environment and all the great relations he's making with China and India and all the other partners, the strong relations with America that he's forming and forging for the future. Trudeau has predicted on 2 different occasions that Norman would wind up in court, even though at the time the naval officer had not been charged. So there's a lot of red flags going around here. Police, RCMP, hey, you want to investigate this? Nah. Chief of Defense Staff General John Vance suspended Norman from his job in January 2017 after the RCMP presented him with their allegations. But just months later, a judge raised concerns in the court about the strength of the evidence against Norman. So, in examining the public release of the RCMP's request for a search warrant related to Norman's case, Ontario Superior Court Justice Kevin Phillip wrote in an April 2017 ruling that it was not unusual for the vice-admiral to be communicating with Davie since the company was involved in the ship project. The judge specifically noted that none of what Norman did was for financial gain, but was instead to advance the well-being of the Navy and its sailors. So the RCMP probably saw this. They can read. They're not completely stupid. They're not that dumb. They knew. But they're going to charge him with this anyways. They're like, okay, we're going to get this guy. We're going to ignore all these other leakers that we have that most likely potentially leak this, that we can actually find good information to charge them on. But the judge specifically noted, or Phillips also pointed out, that the prosecutors would have to prove that the naval officers was the first in the leaky Ottawa to have shared any cabinet confidences or other sensitive information about the matter. At the RCMP, at the time, the RCMP had already identified a second suspect, government official Matthew Machette. In February 2019, the RCMP charged Machette with one count of breach of trust. He has pleaded not guilty. In addition, the former defense lobbyist told Postmedia the details of the 2015 cabinet meeting were already known by a number of well-connected individuals in Ottawa. Norbert Sear, a retired military officer who has been a lobbyist for a defense firm as well as working for the defense industry's top association, said he and a number of others with no connection to Norman or Davy knew the details of the cabinet meeting shortly after it happened. So this guy's saying he knew about it, a bunch of other people knew about it shortly after the meeting. Norman has faced mounting legal costs because the lengthy battle to gain access to documents. He originally requested financial assistance from the special government fund that covers legal fees for federal employees, but the Department of National Defense declined that request, claiming Norman had already been found guilty of disclosing confidential information. That determination of guilt was made by a small group of bureaucrats. They did not conduct any investigation, and DND has declined to say how it arrived to this determination of guilt. All politically motivated. Meanwhile, the supply ship that Norman fought for, the Asterix, has been operating for more than a year, refueling Royal Canadian Navy ships around the world. So it's in process. It's working right now. And once again, we see how the government tries to pick winners and losers. Trudeau, they're just trying to give money and power and jobs and resources to their friends like SNC Lavalin and also the Irving family. And same with Scheer. He would also pander to SNC Lavalin. I don't know if he has a connection with the Irving family, but I'm sure they got their tentacles in a lot of different groups. They got a lot of money, a lot of reach, a lot of power. And this is just a reoccurring theme with the Trudeau administration. Like, they're just so dirty. There's another guy, LeBlanc, I think. Didn't he have to step down because he was giving contracts to one of his cousins, like $1 million contracts to I don't know, like sea or crab fishing or something like that. And then he had to step down, and all these people are stepping down. Like, so dirty. This is the dirtiest politicians I've ever seen in my life. Like, they make me think I'm living in South America or something like that, in some third world country, because they're just so dirty. The police are working with them, the prosecutors are working with them, and it's all just a scam. It's all bullshit. But I'm glad that this guy Norman is finally vindicated. This is just more shit smeared on Trudeau's face. I'm sorry for the terrible metaphor or whatever, but I like seeing this. Hopefully, but I would really like to see the RCMP trying to do something about this. And this is what it really does expose, right? It's just how the RCMP guys, they do not have your back. I know a lot of people love the police and all this stuff, and some of them are great. Some of them do a great job and go and protect people's lives and stuff, but a lot of them, they're just goons for the government. They're just tax collectors, and they go and investigate conservatives and right-wingers and all this, but they completely ignore all of the bullshit that comes out from the left, all of the scandals, all of the political motivation to destroy people's lives, etc. They do nothing about that. So we know who they're working for. So this is why I promote having a smaller government as well. Do we really want to give more of our power, more of our protection over to people like this that are clearly working for the Liberals? No. You want more power for yourself. We want people to be able to carry guns, to be able to protect themselves, as opposed to relying on these corrupt people like this that are working for, whichever government is in power at the time, right? Really, it's the conservatives. They're gonna, whoever gives them more money, more power, more resources, they're gonna go. Like, I saw this one video the other day, and people were trying to report complaints to the police, and none of them were able to do it. Like, all of these journalists, undercover journalists, are trying to, and yeah, you could say it's trying to smear the police, but really, a lot of these guys are scumbags, and when you have a monopoly on force and power, it's just going to incentivize more of that type of behavior, and it's going to get these types of people trying to get into that job because they want a position where they can, be dicks to people and whatnot and abuse their power. So, we need to take more power away from these people. And, I guess this is a different subject. But yeah, the video has been going on for a little while now. If you guys like my content, subscribe. Check out all of the links I have below. Follow me on Minds, BitChute, Gab, as well as IDW, all that other stuff. But that's all I pretty much had to say, guys. Take it easy.